So Daryl, I appreciated your post on Discord regarding TikTok. I had my very first TikTok experience yesterday.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it is a thing. What is it? 1 billion people have downloaded the app. As you saw on the post that I did, this artist Joji cracked the top 100 of Billboard because of activation on that platform, and it seems like that platform allows for cleared music to be used for people's videos, and then at the artists, I'm not sure how they monetize on it, but the traction that happens with those tracks on TikTok translates into SoundScan, which then translates into where they land on the Billboard charts. So if you're able to break a song on TikTok, you might be able to break onto the charts.
Oh, that's crazy. I didn't know that TikTok's plays counted within SoundScan. That's nuts.
It might not be SoundScan as the one who's reading the information, but it is definitely the contributor towards making towards getting onto the charts.
Oh yeah, that's the way I would understand.
I read that article on Billboard. That Joji song that cracked the top 100 recently was because of its what's it called, usage. 10 million streams. I think it had 10 million streams on TikTok.
Right. So so I guess you've gathered from trying out TikTok that it's never a complete song. It's only little
15 seconds.
15-second snippets. It's kind of like Twitter for video.
It's amazing.
And musically, you know, set the stage for it, of course, right? Because it was up until half a year ago or so, it was musically, and then I can't remember the company that bought it, and they just kind of exploded with it. When they bought it, somehow they really got the kids to start using it. I don't know how that worked, but it really took off after it switched from musically to TikTok. But no, there is no artist compensation built into the model. So the whole advantage for the artist is promotion.
100%. It's promotion, and it's things that just seem to go viral very quickly. I mean, I mentioned Joji before as have a relationship with his team, and you know, we've been tracking him for a while, and this video of his went viral on TikTok. And when you look at the thousands and thousands of videos people have created, you know, for 15 seconds with that one clip. And a lot of those clips, they have, you know, 75,000, 85,000, 100,000 likes. And it makes me think, with all the things that we're talking about gamifying RSong and the rewards program, and how fans will truly interact with artists and what type of ecosystem we're building. And then we could look at TikTok, you know, it makes me think, how do we connect the dots? How do we gain, how do we look at what they're doing and add that into our space?
Well, I would say that one thing to examine with TikTok is that it's very voyeuristic. The whole idea of it is that you do a video of yourself with your life to another piece of audio, and it's not always music, right? It's sometimes it's dialogue from a film. In fact, that's the main one that my daughter uses all the time, is like that approach. But so the connection, I would say, what we could kind of pursue would be the interconnectivity of the whole idea, because a lot of times it's not the artist's song that makes the thing go viral. It's what the video content. So 100%. What the so-called fan is contributing. So they're literally contributing their content, and it's actually that content, the video content, that makes the thing go viral. So I would say figuring out a reward system so that not only the artist gets rewarded, which would also be novel for TikTok, but also the person who's created the video should get rewarded somehow too. And I love that idea.
Yeah, it's so weird that you're talking about this, because literally I was standing in line getting my coffee and thinking about, you know, how do we use, you know, media and entertainment like music to gamify green behavior. And I was wondering, like, what would be the next level of some kind of green point system? And you mentioned TikTok, and it suddenly makes a lot of sense. Like, what what if there were, extra tokenization incentives around, these kinds of song tracks to someone, videoing their green behavior, whether it's just like not using a paper cup at a coffee shop, bringing their own cup, to, more extensive things like a neighborhood going down to a beach and cleaning up the beach. Right. So
I think it's a great idea. Imagine it's the month leading up to Earth Day. You put a call to action on a music platform. Show yourself being eco-friendly. And here's a bunch of songs to choose from that have been licensed to be the soundtrack of that initiative. There's a whole movement that could happen around that over the course of the month that rewards artists and rewards the fans.
Yeah, exactly. And then this could work for a variety of causes. It doesn't have to just be music, but it could be cause-based behavior that is gamified.
I like it. Well, Greg, I'm glad you joined us. We have 2 new faces on the call today.
Woohoo!
Yeah.
I'm driving, so can you speak up?
Sure, I'll make introductions. We have Mr. Benefo Ofoso Benefo on the call. Benefo and I played in a band throughout the 90s. We've known each other since 6th grade. He is my brother-in-law. Additionally, he does a lot of IT work. He recently moved from running the University of Michigan Law School IT infrastructure, and he's here in LA, and I had a conversation with him and Ned regarding RSong and IT and all those types of things. So, Benefo, say hi.
Hello.
Great.
Nice to meet everybody.
Hello. Nice to meet you, sir.
And additionally, Benefo is a monster guitar player, and I think you guys will hopefully one day get the opportunity to sit with your guitars in front of one another.
Oh, that would be a blast. I'd love it.
Yeah, or even just to talk about gear, because that's my hobby, and just putting together rigs and that sort of thing. It's very interesting.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I'd love to pick your brains. I do all of my stuff through Ableton and SoftStep, but I'm trying to get my 15-year-old son has added electric guitar to his oboe and trombone and arsenal, and so I'm trying to get him set up with an appropriate rig that's reasonably portable.
Yeah, a lot of options nowadays, so it's a good conversation.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Also on the call, we have Eliza Hava. I'm connected with Eliza during the NAMM conference, and we had lunch earlier this week. She has a technology suite called the Musicians Business Administration Software for Success, which has a booking app, a way of being able to get in touch with the musicians about rehearsals, and a whole suite of things. And at some point during this call, I would like to invite her to present her what she's doing. Elisa, say hi to the crew.
Hi, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning. I would really love to hear about your app. That sounds fascinating.
Cool. Yeah, it's been a journey, and there's definitely a journey ahead, but happy to share.
Yeah, I think that what she's building, there's some a lot of aspects of it that could integrate as a DAP to DAP connector on what we're building with RSong. So I look forward to you guys seeing what she's cooking up. Great. Before we dive into all of that, anyone have any comments, concerns, questions, or things that they want to bring to the table?
All right. I don't really think now is the time to do this.
All right. So we'll dive into all of that, Nora, later on. And we'll schedule something.
I think we should have a time, maybe when we don't have guests, or, when we're not recording, or, I think there should be a time when we could get into all the questions.
Yeah. Close the door and let our hair down.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. Thank you for saying that, Fabian, but I just think maybe we can continue on the kind of vibe that we have now and talk to our guests, and then maybe we find a time to have everyone ask and answer their questions maybe at different time.
Super.
What do you guys think about that?
Cool. I'll arrange a meeting for next week regarding the deeper conversation that you want to dive into. So we'll make that happen probably on Monday. I'll send an email out.
Great.
All right.
Yeah, you can reach out to Lilia and have her help with the scheduling.
Great. I'm going to suggest end of day Monday or Thursday, Friday is Tuesday, Wednesday. I'm going to the CIS conference here in LA.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And Derek and I went to some other blockchain conference yesterday, the Elevate conference. With some folks there, but yeah, CIS is in the cards for next week. All right. Well, I would like to hand the talking stick over to Eliza. And if you would like to share what she's doing with the gang, that would be really cool.
Yes, please.
And if Eliza, if you're on your computer and you want to share a screen and show some stuff, that would be awesome.
Okay. Yeah. I'm still drinking my morning coffee, so here we go. Well, I'll just start giving you guys a little bit of my background. I'm a singer-songwriter. I've been writing music since I was 9, playing live since I was 18, kind of jumped into the independent music world more out of necessity than desire. I'd had a lot of, conversations with people who wanted to help me get signed, but nothing ever worked out. And then I ended up going deep into the nonprofit world, doing concert production related to UN activities, and traveling a lot as a music ambassador for peace and things like that. That was for about 7 years. And then about 5 years ago, I moved to Santa Cruz, California, and really decided to go hard for my own music career rather than being attached to causes, which I've been for nearly a decade, just, touring to promote different projects. I decided I just really wanted to do my own music for the sake of my own music, and started researching everything going on online digitally, all the different digital marketing platforms, all the different coaching platforms for independent artists trying to break their careers in the social media era, and really looking at the landscape of how the internet has changed the music industry. And ultimately I attempted to kind of take some steps towards launching my career online, and I just kept hitting wall after wall, with the lack of tools that were really helping me to keep everything concise and consolidated. Way too much stuff to sift through, and nothing that was really efficiently helping me manage everything on my own. Anyway, fast forward, a couple of years went by, and I basically, came up with a vision for a all-in-one dashboard that helps you do everything from build and communicate with your fan base to managing your inventory, book your tours, post to social media, and engage with your fans from one dashboard, ideally, so you don't have to constantly be signing into multiple platforms. And also the benefit of a tool like this is, for artists who are constantly touring, constantly on the road, being able to do a lot of it from a mobile device, not having to log in to your computer every time you want to update something, which obviously there's a ton of mobile capacity these days. But being able to have a tool that functions along with your phone, that's, kind of basically like a mega back end for your independent music business. So, considering that each artist is kind of like their own business entity, right? How would a small business run their inventory, run their P&L, run all of this stuff? It's kind of like giving those same tools tailored for musicians to the independent music world. So that's what I envisioned. That's what I started to build, first by putting a team together of people that have music industry background, that have tech backgrounds, putting together a really solid advisory board. Because I'm basically 20 minutes from San Jose, I started researching the startup space. I'm a musician and someone who worked in the nonprofit world for 10 years. So technology and startup space, it's all very new to me. So I spent about a year just, running around Silicon Valley, learning and getting my feet wet with pitching. And so basically where we're at now is that I've just started building the first set of tools. So that's very exciting. And that's my story. And
I think when I went over her materials, I see a lot of synergy, particularly in the space that a lot of our focus, or what we talk about, is what is going to happen within the independent music space, and creating the ecosystem for the independent space to grow using new technologies. And the suite of software that she's developing for her platform is probably one of the most robust that I've seen out there. I know she's still in the process of developing and getting her seed round in place, but I wanted to introduce her to the team. That way everyone's aware of what she's doing, as there might be some synergies in the future as we're building the platform as well.
Wow, I think there's just tons and tons of synergies. This is very, very much like things I have been envisioning, especially to put it, to wed it to blockchain technologies, so that you could have tokenization opportunities for each of the different functional areas that you're talking about, whether it's booking or inventory management or the development of an audience. So each of those, I think, has significant tokenization opportunities. But I think there are also some other really important opportunities that have to do with sharing. One of the things that I've noticed is a trend in the independent artist community, or at least in the communities that I'm aware of, towards venues that those independent artists control, as opposed to more established venues. Example is the house concert kind of series, and that lines up with the development of Airbnb and
right.
other kinds of offerings like that. And so you could imagine that there's a really good synergy and partnership with those kinds of offerings. And once you were to develop out once a particular artist had developed out a tour that worked using some Airbnb, then they could share that tour with other artists. They could say, these venues in these cities have worked for me, right? And then there can be, if they're able to demonstrate a particular success rate, which is again viewable on the blockchain, and there are artists that are similar, then those venues might be quite interested in those other artists, because they're interested in keeping their venues booked as much as possible, right? And they want to be booked in a way that's going to be successful and revenue generating. And there's all kinds of opportunities that haven't been explored. For example, what about the idea of an Airbnb owner being able to participate in the revenue stream with the artist or with a collective of artists, so that it's spread out. With an independent label might help with those kinds of relationships and give a revenue, a piece of the door, in addition to the usual venue fees, to make the whole thing sweeter and frictionless. So lots and lots of a conversation I'd love to have with you.
Awesome. So I wanted to ask you, did you guys hear about Vibrate, the blockchain platform?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Is
Yeah,
that something similar to what you're talking about?
well, they touch on similar features. There's another one in the UK, off axis,
Okay.
where they do gig swapping, which is another feature that I think is really important, and it sort of lines up with what I was just saying. But this is more for existing venues as opposed to beginning to develop non-traditional venues. So a venue, a particular band might develop a relationship with a venue, and then they're sort of buddies or pals with other bands in the system, and then they can do gig swaps. Hey, I've played here, and you've played there. Let's swap gigs. So that way they expand out the venues that these bands can play, and they've proven this out, right? So they have a profitable model working in the UK, in the Manchester region.
Okay, great. I'll definitely look into that.
Yeah, we know the founders.
I'll send you some info.
Okay, fantastic.
You also mentioned mycelia, obviously, or
I told her about mycelia. She knows. She's aware.
okay, good.
Yep.
But in general, I mean, I think the principle there that Nora is bringing up is that a notion of identity is going to be really important for an offering like this.
Mm-hmm.
And all kinds of. Go ahead.
I think that's part of what we're building right now with the back end for RSong. Considering that it doesn't really exist, the promise is there with white papers, but nobody's built it yet. And judging by what I'm seeing with the first version of the build, we're actually going to have it before anybody else.
Sure. So I mean, there's going to be some notion of identity, but I think that there's a wider conversation in terms of requirements to have here. And I just, it's really important to be sensitive to the range of notions of identity. But there are two ends of the spectrum that we might talk about, Elisa, that I think touch on the kinds of things you're talking about. So one is, like the kind of online identity that you have with, Facebook or Google or things like that. You can't use that notion of identity to go and secure a car loan, nor can you use it to go and secure an insurance policy for a venue where you're going to play. And there are lots and lots of venues that demand that you get an insurance policy. So you want a notion of identity that is flexible enough to cover all the things that might be in between those two ends of the spectrum, and that's going to help the range of activities that you're talking about, as well as lots of other things in this space. And so we're trying to set up a notion of identity that covers more than just here's my email address, here's my phone number, but helps us cover some of these very, very practical things, from being able to manage the distribution of fees for rights holders to content, all the way out eventually to being able to use it to do much more mission critical things like get an insurance policy or put your name against the property, or a rental, put your identity and reputation against a rental for a venue, something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of taking your kind of background and personal ID to the blockchain. I mean, I am new to blockchain in general, right? So a lot of the people that I've talked to about it are still not entirely sure how it works and how it operates. So I think in terms of getting, even here in Silicon Valley and in LA, a lot of people are talking about blockchain, but they don't really understand how it works, which I've found so many times. Even people in the music industry, they're like, yeah, we're going to do this on the blockchain. And I was like, well, how exactly is that going to work? Well, and then they're talking about these, kind of big, grandiose and vague concepts, which doesn't help at all. And I've had that happen at several conferences where people were on panels for blockchain, and still weren't giving clear answers. So as much as I understand about blockchain, I would love to marry that bridge with what you're talking about. So maybe we could have another conversation about that at another time.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Okay, fantastic.
I was just pointing out that there's a range of topics for which blockchain technology, where blockchain technologies can really aid and support the kinds of practical things that a working musician is going to need to handle. Yeah,
absolutely, and I know that that's definitely a big question that people are talking about right now. You know, how blockchain's going to be a major important foundation for next level of the music business and many other types of business. So definitely a conversation I want to keep having.
For sure.
Hey, Aliza, would you be able to play the video? Do you have that available that you can just do a screen share, or you want me to do it? I could probably
Well, the truth is it's a private demo, right? And if we weren't recording, then I would definitely do it. But it hasn't been released to the public yet.
So we'll save that to another day.
Okay. But what I can share with you, which is super simple, is really just a screenshot of my homepage. You know, obviously there are certain things which, you know, you kind of need to keep proprietary for now until I'm a little farther along in my development. I'm going to just share with you my homepage though. How do I open this at the same time? Too many windows open. Okay. Where is my Zoom share? Fantastic. Okay. Can you guys see my screen?
It's currently black, but it is sharing.
Okay. Can you see it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So as Fabian was saying, the company is called Musicians Base. The acronym is Business Administration Software for Success. It also stands for Badass Superstar. So really just, you know, depending on who you're talking to.
Well, it's all about that bass.
It's all about that bass. Exactly. Definitely have some humor built into the marketing, but ideally I want to express the importance of really honoring the musician. So I think what you guys are focused on is making sure that musicians get paid for their work. And obviously that's a huge issue in the industry, metadata, sales, streaming, all the royalties, fractions of a penny. So there's an ideology built into the platform, which is about empowering musicians to succeed, to define success, for themselves, and also to understand how to make money in the music business, given the current climate. All right, I've been traveling for a week, and so I'm just catching up on my sleep here. So this is a philosophy that's also built into the theology behind the platform, which is really, you know, there's always somebody or a team that's kind of holding together all the pieces of the band. And when Fabian and I were talking, he said in his band, he was that guy, right? So in theory, this software is something that will help that guy or that woman or, you know, the team that's taking responsibility for the business components and the marketing components to really keep it together and keep people accountable for different things. I think that's something that even happens in the record label dynamic, is that, you know, different people are assigned to different tasks, but maybe that certain person doesn't know what the other person's doing. And this way everything's transparent. Got a few great people on board. I have Arabian Prince as an advisor. These are artists, I don't know if you know who Ari Herstand is. He's not on my team, although I think he's really fantastic in what he's done with his blog. But he knows about the platform, and he thinks it's awesome. As you know, as we build it out, hopefully, I'd like to bring him on board. But anyway, the development team, the UI UX component, the TED Talks app was designed by my first investor, and the team that I was working with, they also built the Vero app, which I think, was it Fabian? No, you know what? It was somebody else who I met with this week who was talking about Vero. It's a new social media platform that launched in the last year or two. They're trying to compete with Facebook. I don't really know how.
Our team actually, I shared it on one of our posts, and Daryl and I and a handful of us have spoken about Vero. As they are flush with cash, they're growing, and they're in the process of trying to break into the U.S. market. And I believe the money is coming from Dubai.
The money is coming from Lebanon.
From Lebanon, thank you. I knew it was in the Middle East. Yep.
Yeah, and so I'm not sure entirely how this is going to roll out, but that's the same team that I've been in talks with about, a long-term partnership for musician space. We'll see. But what I wanted to share with you more than anything is my manifesto. Sorry if I'm scrolling through here a little bit. The manifesto, and I think this is very relevant to what you guys are doing. So it's really just talking about why we're doing this. Why am I doing this? And why it's important to empower artists to understand how to make smart business decisions so that they can control their careers. And I think you were talking about that, about the live venues, being able to control venue, the live concert experience. I mean, we know that Live Nation has brought up a huge amount of venues, making it inaccessible for emerging talent to break, maybe in a more notable venue. So it's a similar concept. It's like, you don't have to be a touring artist to succeed, right? You don't have to go out on the road. You can build your entire following from your house on your computer and generate an income and never leave your town. So there are different models now for how this, future of the music business can work. Mm-hmm. And this is really about providing a back end to help you manage all of that, right? So let's say you have, 100,000 followers on Facebook. How do you monetize those followers? How do you convert them into customers? And there are all kinds of courses out there, marketing courses for small businesses, but the way to do it for a musician is very specific. So there's some educational components built into this as well. But I'm also very excited about the advocacy piece, because I've always been a community builder. I've always been someone who believes that when people come together, we have more of a collective voice. And I really want to encourage musicians to work together to create, legislation. I mean, I know the Music Modernization Act is passed. There's a lot of talk on Capitol Hill about the music industry and copyrights and everything that's happening with fair pay for fair play, everything like that. So, but that's mostly, the majors that are able to influence those conversations. And then maybe you have the networks like the Sonas or the songwriting. I mean, even the Grammys has an advocacy group, but now it's even harder to become a Recording Academy member, because you have to be nominated by 2 people to even become a member of NARIS. So, for emerging talent and for young people who are just getting their feet wet, who they understand how to go viral. I mean, like you were talking about TikTok, like these kids they're doing it.
Yep.
But they don't necessarily have the business head or necessarily like the even the mindset to think long term. Okay, how do I turn this viral video into a sustainable music career? maybe they'll get picked up by a label, but the label doesn't necessarily know what
And I think
long-term play is either.
I think also just in the world of how does one monetize all of their digital assets, and what platform exists out there that would allow for it to change the way the economic structure currently exists. I think there's a lot of folks out there that are trying to figure out what the next thing is going to be after Spotify, after YouTube, after everything that's presently there, particularly in how we can use the technologies that are being made available through blockchain. So that's a lot of what we're discussing and building towards. So Eliza, thank you so much for sharing this. And I'd like to, I'll schedule a call next week with you, me, and Greg. That way you can share Greg the video and some of the other things that you're developing if you'd like.
Awesome, thank you. And if you guys want to, check out the people that are on my team and just kind of look at this a little deeper, it's just musiciansbase.com.
Our Mr. Ian Bloom has shared the link in the chat window for everyone.
Awesome, great. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anyone have any questions or thoughts to share with Eliza?
One thing that I'm curious about is, have you thought about some of the other aspects of a working musician's life that and how those might integrate? So one of the things that's very common for working musicians is that they're also teachers.
Correct.
And there's a whole sort of music education aspect of this, and I wonder if there's a connection to what you're doing.
Absolutely,
here.
Absolutely, very much
Cool.
so. I taught music.
Yeah, exactly.
Well.
A lot of us have.
Yeah. So there's definitely a music education component in here, and also one of the things that I'm most excited about building into this platform are tools to help musicians manage the various financial components of their careers. So, as you know, musicians have so many different income streams. How do musicians think about those channels? Right. That's part of the bill that I want to really explore, is like how to get musicians thinking about the multiple funnels of income, including the teaching.
Yep.
I'm really curious, Nora. How do you receive this or think about the offering as a working musician? Would this help your life?
You mean Elisa's dashboard, as she called it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think it's awesome. I mean, I think, obviously, like, we know, especially in the blockchain space, but also, with the developing, sort of different products for independent musicians, there's a lot of competition for different models and ideas. But I think that's a really good thing, because the more that we have, the more different models and ideas that we can compare and we can test and figure out, like, which ones are the best ones. And I think it's really interesting, for example, like in streaming in America, like, we don't have any streaming services that have like internal direct tipping to artists yet. And I think that would be a really popular feature, especially even if we just kicked back like a couple of % back to the corporation, even though that's not what it's for. Like, they could still make money off of that. I think that would be a really popular feature. So I think there's plenty of room for all these different platforms to have some healthy competition and to see which ones are ultimately going to win out. And we already live in an environment in which there are a lot of different options for where to stream, or, for example, like in the film and TV industry, where you can get different types of TV and video or and movie content. So obviously there doesn't have to be just one that sort of wins, as I guess you don't have to say win, but you know what I mean? So I think having a lot of variety right now, especially in the beginning when it comes to blockchain, and also when it comes to indie sort of in-house marketing tools or in-house asset management, I think is a really good thing. And I think yours looks awesome. So I look forward to checking it out more.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Nora, I just want to check that. Doesn't SoundCloud support tipping?
No.
Oh, they used to, didn't they?
Nope. Nope.
I don't
Never.
think so.
Never been.
I've never seen any tipping in any streaming service. The closest thing would be like obviously crowdfunding, and then you can use Bandcamp like a store, and then if you want, like, you know, instead of saying the word crowdfunding, you could basically sell your music on a crowdfunding website and just use it like a store. You could keep it open 365 days a year, and then if people want, they can give you money on top of the sale as like a gift. That's the closest thing I've heard, but there's nothing like what I'm talking about right now, which is crazy.
Yeah, the only place I've seen tipping is for like live streaming your shows.
Yep, that's it.
Oh yeah, with like the Spacebar app or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like there's another one called well, I can't remember, but anyway, there was a UK app that did that, but also that was in the UK, and they're much more progressive than us on some things, and some other things maybe not so much. But yeah, I think there are a lot of features out there that need to be tested and need to be implemented, and I mean, yeah, ultimately we have a lot of experimentation to do. So yeah, Greg, to answer your original question, I absolutely think this is something that independent artists like me and other people absolutely be able to use. Yeah.
Yep.
Awesome.
One other aspect of dialogue that's really interesting to me is how your vision fits with a move towards decentralization. So can you imagine a business model where there's no one in charge, where there are many parties are actually supporting the function of the network that you build, and it's really the community that is making this thing fly, as opposed to one central party. And it's cool if it's not, but you know, I'm just curious as to how you see the offering fit into a decentralized world.
You're talking about the concept of musician space in general?
Yeah, that's right. Musician space in general, and the notion of decentralization.
Well, in an ideal world, I think that'd be amazing. In a practical world, when you're seeking investment, you're always going to have a board of directors. So how do you decentralize when you're raising capital from, you know, people who are going to want to control the direction of the platform as a tech startup, right? So in theory, ideologically, everything that I've ever done in the music world, you know, founding artist collectives when I was younger, and, you know, working for this larger, broader concept of like a utopian, you know, a utopian world through the power of music, through the healing power of music, and self-guided lifestyles. In an ideal world, I'm definitely on that wavelength in terms of the world that I would like to live in. And then in terms of like the world that we actually do live in, I don't know how to envision that, given like the current state of the business world. So maybe part of this conversation could be how you guys could open my mind to that, because I understand that blockchain is seeking to do that overall. And I would really, you know, I'm open to really learning and expanding my vision to see how that's even possible.
Sure. Well, one step in this direction is something that our chain has explored, and and also one of our previous partners explored, which is the cooperative model. So the cooperative kind of bridges between needing a board of directors and needing at least democratic governance, right? So cooperatives are committed to one member, one vote, but you can still, which is different than a share-based model where, you know, she who has the most shares, you know, directs the directs the organization, at least in part. So there's it's a different kind of governance model that's more democratic, but you know, it can be utilized to in a representational way. So you can have a membership elect a board, and then the board, you know, serves at the will of the membership to make sure that any resources that go into the offering are directed, you know, in a manner that matches in accordance with the will of the community. So that's one approach, and the Resonate streaming service looked at this as a potential model, and I think that the cooperative model, you know, it has a lot of legs for what I would call, well, for public utilities. And I view things like a blockchain or a search service or a social network as essentially information utilities. I mean, they're not the same as the electric company or the gas company, many of which are cooperatives, but they represent sort of a next tier level of utility, which I would call information utilities. And I think that those kinds of things really do need public accountability. Like when you have something that is effectively a global news service with billions of users like Facebook is, to have it be a private concern raises all kinds of issues around governance and slanting and those kinds of things. And I think the same is true in a fractal way down to smaller communities. So, you know, it might be reasonable for the independent music community to be able to feel empowered and to feel a part of a service like this or other kinds of music information utilities. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, so is that how you're approaching the RSong initiative?
So RSong is a B Corp, and we did that to explore a different governance model that would allow for equity participation. In the US, equity participation in cooperatives is a little trickier. In Europe, it's not. So like in Germany, for example, there is such a thing as shares issued to cooperative members, and so you can offer equity positions as a part of that structure. But in the US, typically you don't have a shareholder model or anything like that associated with a cooperative. And so it, you know, in terms of engaging with the investment community, the cooperative model is missing one thing, and sometimes you can make it up in terms of tokenization stuff. So the RSong co-op was able to get around this entirely because, you know, RSong offers a token that investors can use as a means to you know, reap rewards, and then they can become members of the co-op in order to participate in governance. So that's a model that works. And then the RSong, which is more of a streaming service, is a slightly different thing because it offers some key things which are not strictly information utility kinds of things. So in particular, RSong is not just about you know, a better reporting and accounting solution. What we found in our market research is that while artists are very much concerned about that, it doesn't move the needle enough for them to really want to get engaged. But if you offer something else, for example, an unprecedented audio experience, Now, this is, again, not for the end user who are frequently listening to things when they're jogging and doing laundry. So the audio experience is not paramount. But for the artist, having, an audio experience that's 10 years ahead of everyone else really does move the needle. And so that is also a part of the RSong offering. And so that differentiates it from a public information utility. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Yeah. And so there are kind of two main things there that are that sort of are a reason why it's better served by a structure that is a B Corp, but it's not a C Corp, right? It's not, or an S Corp. It's a B Corp. So there's an explicit statement in the bylaws that the aim includes public benefit and not just maximization of profit.
Right.
Cool. Well, I think we gave Eliza a really good dissertation on the co-op model. And there's a lot more for us to be able to dig in on. We have about 7 minutes until we have to conclude the call to jump onto the staff call. I just want to open up the space for anybody else, particularly Daryl, who I haven't heard much from during this call. If Daryl is still there. Super. All right.
Sorry, guys. Yeah, I am here. I just had trouble with too many windows. Yeah, Eliza, I've been stalking you while you've been talking, and I've gone to your website, and I like that last paragraph in your About section, which reads, with an inherent message of peace and universal love, Eliza's music embodies the power of music to heal the mind, body, and soul while staying true to the ongoing practice of reclaiming our natural state. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the name of my record that I'm putting out. So.
Natural state?
Yeah.
That's a good.
I'm happy that resonates with you. Writing bios is not easy.
Yeah, it's so true, especially when you're writing one about yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very cool. So, Daryl, what's your role in particular? I'm trying to get a sense of who's the RSong team and the different roles within it. That would be cool to hear.
Okay, yeah, so I've been involved with RChain since before RChain, when it was Scenario, mostly as a volunteer. I was employed briefly last month for 2 weeks, and now I'm back to being a volunteer. I am a music producer, so I've produced some albums that have gone platinum in the US, and I've got a couple Grammy nominations, blah, blah, blah. And so I'm an indie artist advocate. I've been doing it for like 30 years, and so I'm kind of trying to find a solution to the gaping hole in the marketplace right now. Now that the major labels have completely jumped on board the music as a service model with Spotify, we don't have a indie alternative record store like we used to have with CDs. So that's kind of my focus, is to try to build a equivalent streaming service to the indie stores that used to exist. Still exist, but yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah, I was just having a conversation with a LA-based label services company who they're looking for ways to actually bring physical product manufacturing back, because the streaming services, the labels basically, I believe they've dropped, or they've stopped using the physical product model. That's what he was saying, that there's like so much money that they're just leaving on the table because they're not printing up CDs anymore. They're just going for streaming. But in the independent world, a lot of artists are still selling CDs and vinyl on tour.
Yep.
So,
I think fans want something physical in their hands. When I go out and see a band, when I buy a concert ticket and I'm at a show, more often than not, I'll buy the T-shirt because I want to support the band, and I also want to have, something that's collectible. And I think that aspect of being a music fan has disappeared because everything's digital. So yeah, I hear that.
I think selling music in its physical form is definitely dead, but I think merchandise is on the way up.
yeah.
I would agree with Nora there. When I talk about the indie record store, I'm not talking about the physical thing. I'm talking about a streaming equivalent.
Okay.
But yeah. Although vinyl's had a nice resurgence, and I've noticed that there's a new type of store that has been popping up in cities that I've visited. That kind of is an attempt at the kind of indie record store, where they tend to sell a lot of vinyl, a lot of used vinyl, and then they also offer music lessons. A lot of times it's like there's a venue, a small venue. So there seems to be an attempt still at kind of nurturing a music community locally, and I think that that's something that we would want to focus on partnering with as well, or even potentially building out. But that's not really my main focus.
Yeah, we have one of those here in Santa Cruz, but it's been here forever. It's one of the last remaining record stores, Streetlight. It's really, I love it. I love seeing the independent store that, it's kind of grungy, but it's old school. It really has the vibe of what music has always been about. So I definitely would like to learn more about how you want to support that kind of movement.
Well, so the whole thing is, to me, is that basically what's happened, because the major labels are in bed with the major streaming services, they have shut out any attempt at about an indie middle class, and so there's a gaping hole there. I mean, the indie middle class was my client base, and it's disappearing, right? And so, I've worked with artists that have done amazing accomplishments as indie artists. Like one of the most exciting moments of my life was when I experienced an artist that I worked with debut at number 3 on Billboard, entirely independently, and she was surrounded by major label artists on the charts. So what I want is to try to bring that back, and there's a way to do it. You can build a streaming service that actually compensates the artists more directly. So that's kind of what I'm focused on.
Awesome.
We have to go to the staff meeting.
Yes.
Yep. Time to jump over.
Eliza, thank you so much for joining us and sharing with us. Benefo, I'm sorry you didn't have a chance to participate in today's call, but hopefully you'll both join us next week.
Yes, Susan.